Another interesting conversation. You guys are in for it with Mr. Ken Blackman, 25 years plus as a relationship coach, an Apple computer engineer, very great mix of emotional intelligence and systems thinking, and all around kind of funny guy. So it's really thoughtful, really great conversation.
Yeah, very thoughtful, very intimate, and it's really about intimacy. And oddly enough, I think it was mostly intimacy in the bedroom, but as all three of us acknowledged and spoke about it, it's taking that intimacy out into the world, dropping the facade.
Yeah, having a rich life by learning how to talk to each other better.
Yeah. So please subscribe, tell your friends, hit us up if there's something you want to complain about or have an idea. If you know Dave Chappelle, please make an introduction. We'd love to have him on the show. Drink adrenochrome cola.
Support Blast and Compton Cowboys and keep riding.
Sis, hallo?
Blijven.
Stuur zeker wegen dem.
Joh je iets niet, joh.
Sitaki ubenza, anika sirikie.
Two outlaws on the lam, taking the back roads through America.
You can't drink enough coffee for this show.
And now it's time for Monday Madness with the Moped Outlaws, Greg and Mark.
Hello, we're live with another episode of the Moped Outlaws. Today, Greg and my guest is Ken Blackman, a commitment illuminist. It's great to have you, Ken. One of the reasons we are so excited to have you is that you wrote a really interesting article recently on your Medium page about Patriarchy. Before we get into that, can you just kind of define what neo-patriarchy might be?
Yeah, this was a word that I only recently encountered, but it perfectly encapsulates where we're at, which is the trend of bringing traditional male-female roles into a modern society. So neo-patriarchy is, here we are post 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s into the 2025. And the reintroduction of more traditional male-female roles, and just as a cultural phenomenon that's part of the zeitgeist, there's a word for it, and the word is neo-patriarchy.
Got it. And in my view, there is what I would call a elevated or illuminated side to a patriarch. And in the most benevolent way, that is someone who protects and loves and provides for family and community.
Right.
And in this case, what we're talking about is not necessarily the illuminated side of that concept, but a sort of more darker, fear-based compensation for powerlessness.
Agreed. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. That certainly, just to kind of set some context, like there are some ways in which my wife's and my relationship fit a traditional model in terms of how we interact with each other and the roles that we take. There are some ways in which we do not fit the model at all. There are some ways in which the roles are reversed, and there are some ways in which you couldn't apply the model either way. And all of that is fine. Do you know what I mean? Like from my point of view, I don't think it isn't my goal, and I don't think it's anybody's goal to demonize the two people who have a relationship where it's working well and they have worked out roles that match, the traditional roles. So I don't have a problem. More power to you, right? It's great. And like you say, it isn't like the word patriarch doesn't necessarily have to be demonized either. All of that said, there's a power dynamic that women have fought fiercely to get out of. And traditional patriarchy and neo-patriarchy fail to address or even look at or consider why it might be that women have worked so hard to break free of those roles. And so that's kind of what my article is about.
I struggle with this in my life because I was raised with a father who wasn't present a lot of the time and wasn't representing masculine ideals in the traditional patriarchal sense. And so I had come up with this idealistic view of a whole new world where these roles wouldn't matter, and we could be free of the deleterious effects of them. But what I found out when I started actually dating and got into my 20s, that there was still this presence where the commerce, the way that men and women exchanged status and information and coupling, often still had these rules that were ingrained in the neurology of what it was like. To what degree do you think there is a biological imperative for these rules, and then the nature versus nurture piece?
This is a really good question, and we could go a lot of different places with it. So I think that it's so deeply cultural that we don't really ever get to see the biological component and what it actually is. So a ton of what we think is biological is actually cultural across the board in a lot of different ways. And then we point to biology to try and justify what we believe. So here's how I think of it. Let's say hypothetically that we had a really idealized breadwinner role. Okay, like it's idealized. Like anyone would think this role is great. It's healthy. It's good. It's very satisfying and gratifying. And let's say there's also an idealized homemaker role. Okay, that the criterion being this is something that lots and lots of people would want, right? Because that's the whole thing we're talking about, is that we have roles that women have walked away from and that men don't want. So let's say we have this really like idealized homemaker role that is the envy of anybody. And let's say we have a whole bunch of cis hetero couples ready to step into these roles. Okay. Then under those circumstances, we would get an opportunity to see how they naturally, organically fall into those two roles. And it could be that more men gravitate towards the one, more women naturally gravitate towards the other. But the fact is that we don't have that. We have roles that women are walking away from in droves and have been fighting for hundreds of years, that were economically and even legally they were required, right? A woman couldn't really live a life without getting married. There wasn't that option. So we're only now seeing that once women had the freedom, many of them do want to be a homemaker, but so many of them have walked away from it, right? So we don't even have equal, like these idealized roles that hypothetically people would want. What we have is this very, very hierarchical, where the traditional things that men are allowed to do are coveted, and the traditional things that women are required to do are assigned. And like lots and lots of women I won't say no women are choosing. I'll say lots and lots of women aren't choosing it, and lots of men wouldn't want that role either. So we don't have these idealized roles to even ask that question.
There's no solid basis for comparison. I think it's a good place to point out that you've been a relationship coach for over 25 years. And prior to that, you were also an engineer in Apple computers. Yes. So the way that you are the combination of emotionally intelligent as well as systems proficient is really a powerful way that you bring to this analysis and as part of that description. So what would most womanists or feminists say about the word patriarchy that we would describe as harmful and toxic?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
There's
And
this
I don't know
idea
that I
in the patriarchy, right? And right.
Okay.
So what is that, right? What is the toxicity about that?
Got it. I think I understand the question. So patriarchy has become this negative word, and rightly so. And you're asking why is it that it's rightly so that patriarchy is so demonized? Okay. Well, it's very closely related to what we've been talking about, which is that we're not looking at why women have walked away from these roles. We're not looking at like until the 70s, like until the 60s, women couldn't own a house. Until the 80s or 90s, they couldn't have a credit, or until the 70s, they couldn't have a credit card. Like there's been so many things that women can't do, and there's so many things that women are required to do. So we have a system where like women's roles don't have the autonomy, they don't have the income, they don't have the freedom, they don't have the status of male roles. Do you know, like it is fundamentally a secondary role. And I don't mean to disparage anyone who chooses those roles. I'm speaking to why so many women have walked away from it, because it's been an assigned role, it's been a required role, it's been a legally required role, or certainly an economically required role. So, you know, the question that I ask in my article is, what would it take to make that role something like women are making the same kinds of choices that I made in my life? What would make me excited to take on the role that I think is so important that women to, you know, handle?
It seems like basic logic would be at play for equalization. Like if you came home from your work out in the world at, let's say, 6:30, 7 p.m., and you expect to be able to kick up your heels, lie on the couch, and your wife continues to cook and clean and work, that's not going to last long with an intelligent individual.
You bring up something that is at play here. It's funny, at play. I'm about to talk about a system called fair play, which I don't know if you've heard of it, but basically it started with a documentary and is now a whole book and system that couples can use to get real clear on what their actual roles and responsibilities and the amount of work that each of them is doing. Because one of the things that plays into this is the degree to which so many men, I won't say all men, but so many men are blind to the amount of work that their wives are doing, or their girlfriends are doing, or that women are doing. And it's so easy for us to discount and say, I'm the one who's working hard so that she has a good life, not recognizing, you know, it's called what's the word for it? The second job or something like that. But go ahead.
What comes to mind is it's rarely acknowledged the amount of energy expended in emotional care. And you can really see it with a caregiver, with someone who's handicapped in some manner, or an elder person, someone who's dying. It's not physical work, and you're not moving around a lot out in the world. But these individuals are depleted at the end of the day.
Yeah. Yeah. I heard a statistic. This made me embarrassed for men, I'll just say. In when a married couples, when one of them gets a life-threatening illness like cancer, percentage of men who walk away when their wife gets sick, who divorce their wife because, well, she's sick. She can no longer show up for my needs. Right? It's I don't want to get it wrong, but my memory says that it's more than 50% of men get a divorce when she has a life-threatening illness. That's not women. Women don't walk away from their man when he gets ill or has a life-threatening. So that's the degree to which we unconsciously are self-serving, like blind to our partner's needs, or our partner's, like the stuff that women struggle with, the stuff that
If we think about another generalization of the older man who leaves his wife of the same age for a younger lover,
yeah,
how much need is really at play in the sexual realm for a healthy male?
Well, you use the word need. So I'm going to give a top level answer, and then I'm going to give a more detailed answer. So the answer to your question as asked is 0. It is not a need. That said, because of my background, which I'll just say, like, the first decade or so of my work as someone who works with couples was focused on what happens in the bedroom. So what became very quickly clear is that women like sex, they want sex, they enjoy sex, they even pursue sex just as much as men if it's good sex. And so this idea that is so deeply ingrained in us that we take it as like the water we swim in. It's like we don't even question this, that men are the ones who want sex and women are the ones who give sex. And what I found is that when you actually make the sex good for her, she wants more of it and wants, you can have a sex life that gets better over time. Do you know what I mean? Like, I've been married to my wife for 5 years. Our sex life, it's funny because this subject comes up a lot. And I'm about to say something, and I always have to check and see, is it true this time that it's coming up? And I checked in with myself, and yes, it's true this time. The sex that my wife and I are having is better this month than it has been. Like, our sex life is getting progressively better. I'm 62. My wife is 57, going to be 58. We're older couples. We both enjoy sex. That's what's possible. Like, neither of us is going to cheat because what we have at home is better than what we could find out there. Do you know what I mean? Like, so I want to flip the expectation that's inside of your question, if that makes sense, right? Like, there's another option besides I have needs and my wife isn't meeting them. Does that make sense?
It does, completely.
Okay, great.
Sort of moving back to the question I asked you a moment ago, which is, people have a sense of this idea of what's the toxic aspect of patriarchy, or what is it when people say down with the patriarchy. It's precisely because, I think, this is my theory, you can corroborate or not, because the female sex drive, when it's actually not oppressed, is so rich and full that over time men began to fear it and wanted to exert control over it, to calibrate it to what was felt safe for them. Because there's also, as we've understood, if you've been listening, that there's a sort of genital predilection to multiple partners in the selection process. Like, it benefits the species if women have more than one male partner sexually. And so I think that there's this element of patriarchy that is a result of men wanting to be controlling that to feel safe. And that over time that became encoded in religion and social structures. And it became this oppressive force that's now a contextual conditioning that we've inherited over the generations, particularly in Western culture, maybe not so much in other cultures. And I think that's what people mean, is us trying to control. When I say us, I mean people who look like me or my gender, trying to control this incredibly rich fountain of pleasure possibilities that women have.
Yeah. 100% agree. Like, there's definitely, like, it's much bigger than sex, but there's definitely absolutely a sexual component of ownership and control, right? And so I've been listening to this podcaster who analyzes biblical texts and kind of responds to people who post, because he's a scholar of religion, right? He's a scholar of what actually was taking place culturally at the time that the Bible was taking shape in its current form. And a lot of what he talks about when these kinds of topics come up in biblical, passages, basically, like, the laws were such that if a man rapes a married woman, the payment, the punishment and the payment is to the husband, because this man stole something from this man. If a man rapes an unmarried woman, then he has to marry her. This is according to the culture of the Bible, of biblical. He has to marry her, and he has to pay the dowry to the father, because again, he's stolen something. Like, access to her sex is something that the father owns and then sells to a man. And so rape is stealing from the man. Has nothing to do with women's, the fact that she's been violently violated or any of that stuff. So yeah, all of it was ownership of access to her sexuality and protection of the chastity of her sexuality as a possession of the man.
Yeah, it's like chastity as a commodity.
Yeah.
And I could see how that might flow out of a misunderstanding of typical agrarian needs, where you got to manage your sheep, and having a stock of female sheep is really essential to being able to continue to have a herd or cattle or whatever it is, and that makes a small sense from how that might occur, but it doesn't make sense in the larger picture, because this idea of ownership is ultimately destructive of interpersonal relationships and the balance between joy and satisfaction in life.
Right.
I want to ask you a question. What does it look like if, as it says in your article, we exalt the idea of what it means to be a homemaker to the level of rock star status? How would that look in our society? Is that even a reasonable, or is that a cheeky question, a cheeky thing that you say in your article?
It's meant to provoke, thought. It's meant to be thought provoking. I don't know, like, we're so far distant from that. But I brought it up to point to exactly that, how distant we are from that, and how we don't even think in those terms. So, for example, we've been talking about male ownership of female sexuality, right? Mm-hmm. There are people who are going to listen to this. I don't know who your audience is. Maybe fewer. Probably fewer, given who I know you two to be. But there could be people who listen to this kind of conversation and are starting to think, well, yeah, like, I don't want, like, her sex is mine. Like, I don't want her. It's like the direction that at least in the U.S. that we're leaning is backwards towards those very hierarchical control, ownership, types of things. And that is the answer to your earlier question about why patriarchy is toxic. And I want to say one more thing, which is that when I talk to guys about this, if they're enough, because they're a lot of them are single, and all of this is an excuse for the fact that they don't actually know how to show up for a woman, right? Like there's so many guys who are isolated, and their skills or their just capacity to relate with a woman as a human being is so stunted because they're since post-COVID, or even for whatever reason, there are like fewer and fewer men. Like men are developing less and less in the direction that would actually be able to have a healthy mutual relationship. But to those guys who are not in that place, they're actually in the game and in relationship. One of the things I say is an equal relationship, as far as I'm concerned, is actually more fun. It's actually better for him, right? It's better for him than the controlling, the sex that he's attempting to control, the sex that he's trying to get her to have sex with him, right? And the sex he's trying to get is so mediocre. It's not actually very good sex. And like the sex you could be having is so much better, but what it requires is that you pay attention to what her body actually likes, and that you treat her as an equal human being, and that you not operate from this deeply ingrained place of ownership and control.
One of the things in reading your article, and even in this conversation, is my experience is we often stay in this realm of a very broad stroke. And actually, we're three individuals. And even speaking of sexuality, the human body, like heard some women talking about vulvas and how none were the same. They were just talking about all the variances.
Right.
And I'm sure the same is for a penis and on and on. It does seem like part of the health is to slow down and learn our individual truths.
Yes.
And then learn to resonate with another's truth.
100%. Very well said. I totally agree.
So I'm wondering, if you don't mind my using the word expert, as an expert in the realm of relationship, what have you learned that you practice that allows you to learn that resonance of real?
I want to answer specifically in terms of sex, and then I'll answer more generally, because I think the sex, what happens in the bedroom is really pertinent to your question. So, for a good period of time, I was a sex expert, and the head teacher of a pretty large community. And the thing that I had to keep communicating is that there aren't any ninja techniques in the bedroom. What I'm if there's anything I'm better at than the guy who's in front of me, who's coming to me for coaching or teaching, is I actually am better at not knowing. I'm comfortable with not knowing, and I'm comfortable with the fact that, like, there are things. When my wife and I first got together, there were things that I just kind of naturally knew that she enjoyed. But oh my God, if I get in my head about how I'm an expert, like the ego that is possible in that situation I am more at risk than anybody else of having my ego and my pride about sex get in the way. And so I better be super comfortable with saying, I don't know how to touch you right now. Can you show me? Can you help me? I don't know, or whatever it is, like at my age, there's also my penis isn't getting hard today, and so to actually be in present time with another human being in the not knowing and the discovering this unique human being. Like, I can't teach anyone what women like. I can't teach anyone what works in the bedroom. I can only, when I'm working with a couple, have a very kind of honest, candid, detailed conversation with her to discover something that he didn't know, that maybe she didn't know, that certainly I didn't know, and just find out. And like unequivocally, unwaveringly hold that what feels good to her body is prime, even above what she thinks her body should be doing. Because women have the same kinds of judgments that we do, right? Like, oh, I came too quick, or oh, I should, my body. Well, women have like whatever we have, women have 10 times. Here I am generalizing. I said I wasn't going to do that. Okay, I'm going there anyway.
All right.
So to generalize, if I'm going to generalize, women have 10 times more judgment about what their body should be doing or what they should be doing. And I'll give an example of this. So let's say I'm working with a couple and I tell her, your homework this week is your partner is going to pleasure you. You don't have to do anything in return. All you have to do is give him a little guidance. Oh, could you go a little lighter? Could you go a little bit to like, just give him guidance. And other than like, so that he gets better at touching you in a way that's pleasurable. And other than that, all you have to do is relax. And you would be amazed how many women get into that situation. And they're like, am I moaning right? Am I supposed to be writhing to like, what is what I'm doing pleasurable for him? Like, how difficult it is for a woman to switch to being the one who is pleasured by the experience if they haven't had that experience before, because there's so much cultural training that indoctrinates women into the belief that they are sexual service providers, that it can be very hard, and they have lots and lots of those kinds of judgments. So
it just occurs to me that we'd be wise as a society to just have sex be a regular conversation with kids. Obviously, you don't have to get real graphic with a 6-year-old, but it's a part of life. Like when a child comes and asks a question, be like, yeah,
that would be helpful. And you know what else would be helpful is couples talking about their experience as they're doing it. So like if you're, let's say, imagine that you're going to cook a meal together. And, like you're going to cook it and you're going to enjoy it together. Now imagine that meal. You don't talk about prep. You don't speak to each other while you're eating the meal. The meal ends. Maybe you both had an amazing time. Maybe one of you did and the other one didn't. But you don't talk about it afterwards either. So in contrast to that, there's this possibility of actually, and this is how you have sex get better over time, is you talk about it before, you talk about it during, you talk about it after, you talk like you share. It's a shared experience, and you talk about what you experienced. That alone could help couples go from a sex life that goes downhill over time to one that actually progressively gets better over time.
There's this element of when we're young and we're experimenting and we are touching each other in ways that we think we're supposed to based on pictures or videos we've seen or whatever, and we accidentally discover electricity. Mm-hmm. And what I hear you talking about is actually the cultivation of the source of electricity in terms of interpersonal touching. And then the realization that over time, over a lifetime, the way the body responds and the amount of electricity that's available changes. And so what are some of the key verbal postures or poses that people can take with each other in these dialogues? What are like some examples of great things to ask or say?
Okay. So the first rule is, if you ask, how does this feel? The answer is going to be good. And you won't get any answer because basically, when you're in this vulnerable, intimate situation, that question, how does it feel, lands with the person hearing it as, am I doing a good job? And there's a good answer and a bad answer. There's an answer that feels good and there's an answer that doesn't. So if you asked, am I doing a good job? And the answer is no, it's very hard to do that. So a better question could be, what does this feel like? Now, if both people, if you have a conversation beforehand about what this question means, what it can mean is something like, if you think about sommeliers who have come up with so much languaging for what wine tastes like. They've got all these, like, it tastes like, almonds,
Oaky,
or it tastes
fruity,
like,
it's yeah.
I mean, there's hundreds and hundreds of words that mean something specific. Well, we, as a couple, we need to crowdsource together the words that we're going to use to describe the indescribable. And so you can say, what does this feel like? And maybe they'll say, well, it feels velvety. I have a feeling of like electricity running up my spine. I feel, or it could be like, it feels very sharp and kind of like, shards of glass. Oh, do you want me to lighten up? Yes, that would be great. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, but to use language, descriptive language, and you have to co-create it with your partner, because I don't have, a chart, a sommelier's chart. But you can start to have these conversations about the kinds of sensations that are coming up while they're happening, so that you can talk about them. So that's one thing. A great question is, what does this feel like? And then afterwards, a great thing is, like, what was your experience? Oh, well, when you kissed me, I could feel electricity, and then we were kissing for a while, and I could feel the electricity start to drop off, and then then you touched me in a certain way, and I could feel it light back up, which was great. And then when you went over a sharp edge, I went with you, like, it was good. I kind of feel like I co-experienced your climax with you, like, whatever it is, like, you start to talk about the experience, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and there's a curiosity that goes with that, as opposed to a validation. Like, often the question is, was that good for you too? Right? Or
Right.
How did I do? Right. And I think that
Right.
having that internal desire to please and to actually know you did it right is a valid thing. But when you can let go of the need to be right or do it right, and then be in the presence of what actually occurs and just make note of what actually occurs,
Right.
that can be really cool. And then there's the pitfall of that is, well, then once it works great, you're going to pretend like that's what's going to work great all the time. And it doesn't work that way. Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. The biggest risk, like when you're about to have sex, the biggest risk is if you had a really, really great experience, like a breakthrough experience the previous time, because then you're going to be judging the next one, like what went wrong. And also I want to emphasize what you said, because I thought it was really spot on, which is, like, you have to be willing to sacrifice the part of you that wants to be told that you're doing a good job for the connection and the conversation that's going to get you to where she's having that experience for real, right? Like, curiosity. You have to choose curiosity and feedback over praise. Like, you can't punish your partner when they say, yeah, I didn't really have a good time. Like, the proper thing to respond is, great. Tell me how to let's have a conversation about how I can do better. I'm really going to listen to what would be better for you,
and not punish yourself.
and
When
not
your
punish
partner says
yourself.
that.
That's right.
So one thing that's occurring to me is I want these intimate connections with all my personal connections in life, including the counter at the market, and it's not sexual, obviously. I mean, it could be flirty. How do we bring this knowledge of intimacy and connection into our daily excitement of life?
Oh, the degree to which we wear our facade. Oh, the degree to which we walk around like putting on a face that we think people will be happy with. And then, like, worst case, we're doing that with our partner. A slightly less bad case is that our partner is the only one we can be real with, and we wear the facade with everybody else, right? Like, how do we get to that level of just honesty and realness and connection with everybody? I think that's just a beautiful inquiry. There isn't a trick to it, if that's what you're asking. But I think the goal and the aspiration and the inquiry on a daily basis of how to do that is amazing.
Well, what have you found that when you walk out your door, you might practice that allows you the comfort of dropping your facade?
There is a couple. That's a reasonable question. One is a practice that I had where constantly I would remind myself, you don't have anything to prove. You don't have to prove anything to anybody. You have nothing to prove. And in situations where I was walking into a room full of people who I could be intimidated by, when I'm just out, like I'm left to my own devices, I'm shy in crowds. I'm shy at parties. I'm shy, And so my mantra to work through that is, you have nothing to prove. I once had a business partner, and we together had our human designs done. And the person doing the human design said something brilliant that made so much sense for the two people that me and my business partner were. What he said was, Ken, you constantly think that you have something to prove, and you don't. Business partner, you constantly think you have nothing to prove, and you do. And there isn't a better or worse there. What he meant was, this business partner had to let other people see how amazing they were, had to actually do something to earn respect. Like this person had the goods, but they weren't willing to kind of do, like, there was I don't want to say entitlement, but there was something that they weren't showing who they were, and then being like butthurt that this person didn't give them the respect that they do in fact deserve. So they acted like they had nothing to prove, when in fact they actually had to do something to let people see their amazingness, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I just thought that was brilliant.
Yeah. And it's perhaps what occurs to me is your desire to continually prove may not have given that partner the space to prove. Like, you were taking up all the space proving.
Could be. And in my case, it was more like enough people know me and know who I am that I don't have to keep working that hard. I think for me also, there's an aspect of this that's come naturally over time, where just as the years go on, and this hasn't stopped. It started around my 40s. Like, in my 40s is when I started to hit my stride as a man. But my confidence has grown. There's a don't give a fuck that is there for me now, where If I'm not having fun at a party, I'll leave. Like I don't work as hard to try and impress people. But where I could grow more is in letting people see and feel me and actually be present so that people can see and feel me more. Right? That's a place I could grow.
The thing that keeps coming up for me as I listen to this is this idea of generosity. And that when we can actually be fearless in ourselves and let the mask down, that's when our most potent generosity can show up, because it's not performative. It's not arising out of something where we need to be validated for it. It's just, here's the thing that I'm bringing into this moment. And to Greg's earlier question about intimacy in the broader spectrum of social interaction, there's this noticing in the moment what's occurring right now, and how am I feeling, and what am I witnessing, and what does my curiosity do with that, as opposed to my ego or my fear do with that.
Yeah.
And, it comes up when we say, how are you doing? And someone says, fine. And we know they're lying, right? Not lying so much as they're hiding, right?
And they may not even know that the question is genuine.
Right. And so there's this opportunity with the sommelier, or with the waiter, or with the person helping you at the coffee counter, to ask the question differently. And that just requires the consciousness and the presence to actually be with the person in whatever the response is. And I think that's the gateway to intimacy, is that being with, that willingness to be with whatever truth shows up. And that translates to personal, intimate relationships and one-on-one partnerships, but also across the board. It's to the extent that we can open ourselves to actually receiving what's being communicated, we then get and give permission to be open and communicate too. Now, the pitfall is, in our culture of cultism and one-upmanship and competition, a lot of energy gets expended with people one-upping each other or invalidating each other as a way to sort of put a salve on their own lack of self-worth. It really is a dangerous sort of energy field out there for people who aren't as grounded and solid in who they are.
Agreed. Yeah, there's what comes to mind as I listen to you is another thing that I sometimes remember to remind myself, which is, it's not about me, right? Attention off self. Who is this person in front of me?
And Neo-Patriarchy ultimately is about me, because it's trying to solidify and construct and hold on to something that looks like what I need it to in order for me to feel safe and for me to feel validated in the universe. And when true courage comes, it's in the form of, I don't actually need any of that, because in the face of truth of the situation, I'm not going to dissolve. My character is not going to fall apart. I'm going to be present with compassion and curiosity and generosity in a way that allows there to be mutual beneficial relations occurring. And so when we understand when a macho asshole is laying this shit down, that what's really happening underneath that is that person is having trouble feeling safe and grounded in their space and their culture, that can give us just a tiny little opening into compassion for them, that we can then kind of let go of the need to punish or the need to fight them or whatever, and then just be more compassionate with how we speak to them. And that doesn't validate or make it okay to let people walk all over other people. And there are characters in our social spheres who we're arguing about, right? And, you know, there's names I could say right now that would be a sort of representative characterizations of what we would call neo-patriarchy, right? And it's these cults build up around these figures because people want to think they can be close to the thing that's going to make them feel safe again. But it's a lie. It's not going to actually help you. It doesn't actually create safety. And that safety is actually a function of what we would call the exalted or illuminated part of patriarchal behavior, right? But that even in itself is a genderization, right? Because if you look at the Latin root of patriarchy, there's this maleness to it and all of those things. And one of the things that I've learned from you, Ken, over the past is that it isn't about the dynamics of gender in the sense of identifying male, identifying female, or masculine, feminine energies. It's what are the qualities that are part of those energies. So in the identification of neo-patriarchy as something to pay attention to and risk, what are the medicinal qualities of behavior for people that would be antithetical to that neo-patriarchy?
That's a great question. So, wow, there's so much in there. Because patriarchy is also hard on men. There's a common saying that it's as bad for men as it is for women, and there's a way in which that's true, and there's a way in which that's very much not true. So I don't know that I would go that far, but it's certainly not great for men, and we are tortured by it as much as women are. And I read this thing that men more than women, like there's so many guys who simultaneously believe, I fully believe in the breadwinner homemaker dichotomy, and but then they're like, I don't make enough money to win someone, and this belief that 80% of women are attracted to the top 20% of men. Well, it turns out, men are the ones who create the hierarchy of men. So we create it's actually been studied. We create this hierarchy of according to our criteria. How much money, how muscular, how much alpha, quote unquote, energy, all these ways that we men judge each other and then dutifully put ourselves in line, right? And then we say, I'm at the bottom. I know you women. I know what you like. You need to go find that man up there, higher up, right? Well, it leaves the women out. And actually, when women say, that's not what my criteria is. Like, I like the dad bod. There's a poll. I like the dad bod better than the buff guy. And men told women, no, you're wrong about what you're saying your preference is. We know that you like this buff guy better than the dad bod. So we create the entire cycle, right? So
there are women who do not want to date a poor man.
Well, I mean, so do you have your life together? That's definitely a question. Are you emotionally mature, or do you have your life together? Are you self-sustaining? It actually varies. There are women who would happily be the breadwinner and have a man who makes less than her and be the homemaker. There are definitely women who want a man who will be the breadwinner. But what I don't actually hear, like, I don't want to say I don't want to generalize too much, but I'll say what I hear. I do not hear women say, where are all the wealthy, good-looking guys? I do not hear that. What I hear is, where are all the emotionally mature men? Like, I hear it again and again and again, like a broken record. Where are the emotionally mature men? Where are the good men? Now, if your life is a shambles because you don't have emotional intelligence and you can't support yourself, then that can be, like there are more basic things about whether you have gotten to a place where you're able to show up with a partner and partner in life with them. Do you know what I mean? That there's definitely that. But the criteria that we measure ourselves by is not the criteria, not to the degree that we think it is the criteria that women measure us.
Well, you were saying that there's a construct that we create around this hierarchical structure that elevates certain classes of men, and then we told people that they're women, that's how it's supposed to be, even when they say it's not. And that was in the context of how do we unwind? What's the medicine for the reason we're creating that construct where we believe that we have to be something we're not in order to be worthy, in order to have.
So first of all, it helps there's a couple of things. The first is, I don't know that it's helpful to kind of envision the perfect partner and then go out and search for that person, and everyone you meet kind of measure against that
No checklists
vision that you have. Right. Like, and then you find someone who's like, well, they don't meet these criteria, but they meet I guess it's okay. I guess it's good enough. Right. So the relationships that I see are the best are relationships where there was actually a human to human connection of the kind that Greg was talking about. And then now that you have the partner, now you start to create the vision, right? You create the vision with the partner rather than creating the vision and finding someone to stick into that vision that you Lone Ranger created this vision before you even found your partner. So one is like human to human connection, and then you co-create with that person from scratch. Like, what do we together want this relationship to look like? Yeah. And then secondly is, as an alternative to, you have your roles based on the fact that you have a penis, and you have your roles based on the fact that you don't. And the relationship hinges on how well each party lives up to those predetermined ideas. What seems to work better is that you pool your resources. I am good at some things. I'm not good at some things. My partner is good at some things. They're not good at some things. I come with an income, and I come with, assets. My partner comes with things, and then you pool who the two of you are and create something that's better than either of you could have created on your own. And so the alternative to predefined roles is pooling your resources. And that gets back to what I was saying earlier about, there are some ways that I am definitely in the traditional male role and my wife is in the traditionally female role. And there's ways that we're not that. We're the opposite, or we're neither. And so, but we had to figure that out together and have a unique relationship that nobody else on the planet has. And every couple that does that, that's the thing. Your relationship is going to be unique. It's going to be different from everyone else on the planet.
It kind of seems to me that you and your wife aren't asking, I'm a man, what do I need? You're asking, I'm Ken, what do I need?
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And also, I'm saying, I chose you as the person I want to do life with.
Yeah.
Let's figure out together how we're going to do this.
Would you talk a little bit about impermanence and how even things that are of this quality have a storyline and they play out, and how to recognize those moments when the fall is occurring and winter is upon you, etc.
Yeah.
The party's over.
So a lot of the things that we're talking about are the qualities that we already have experienced, maybe with a bestie, with a BFF, where this is someone who knows me better than anyone else because they're the person that I feel safest to be myself with. So I've taken the risk of being myself and showing my ugly parts to this person, and they see me in all my warts and have accepted me, right? That's like bestie energy. And I want to put a bookmark right here because a lot of people believe, oh, if you believe in polarity, then you believe that that level of honesty and that level of being revealed kills polarity. And I flatly reject that belief. So you have that, right? You have, there's a lot of, I'll just say there's a lot of qualities that the basic components of a really good long-term friendship have. And that relationship, so your relationship with your partner is going to change. If you've based it on the things you experience, like if you've picked the perfect person, for who you are right now, like you're going to evolve. So are they. Like, let's hope you're a different human being 10 years from now than you are now. Like, that's not a problem. That we're hoping that you've grown and changed and you want different things. But if you are operating with, like, you have romance, you have intimacy, you have joy, you have all these things, but underneath that, you have friendship. And this is a taboo word when it comes to like dating and relationships, because, friendship, A, it kills polarity. B, there's like, you're in the friend zone. No, the basic components of what a good true friendship is allows you to evolve together. Oh, this thing, I'll give an example. Like my sex life with my wife had to evolve, right? Like there was a point at which all my shtick, my best moves, right? Like they were the best thing in the world. Like she was having the best sex she ever. And then there was a time, it wasn't long before she was done with that. And she wanted something different. And she wanted something that was not in my wheelhouse. And I had to grow and change and become a different person in the bedroom in order to actually show up for her. And so this is how it works. Like, you're going to grow and change, but because we have this bond that is beneath, as a foundation, beneath all the specific things that I like this. Oh, I don't like that. Oh, I like, and some of those things are going to, all that stuff. But below that is we are each other's life partners.
Yeah. What comes to mind is the trust you two have, where you're going to stay at the table. She knows you're not going to run away when she tells you your fireworks aren't working anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And we know that those painful conversations, the ones that people avoid, are necessary for the relationship to get better this year than it is last year. Go ahead.
We've been talking for over an hour in a realm of cis male, I'm wondering if these components in your experience as a coach are real for all genders and all relationships of intimacy.
Yeah. My languaging just tends to skew cis hetero because it's what I know. And because I also think cis hetero couples have very specific problems very specific problems that I can help them with. But a lot of this stuff is just the basic components of how a good long-term intimate relationship,
And it kind of goes back to that going out into the world, drop the facade, be who you are at the grocery store, wherever you are, be who you are.
Everyone else is taken.
Well, I was going to say the opposite. Like, be careful. Be careful how much intimacy you create with someone, and make sure that someone you want to have that level, that degree of intimacy with.
Yeah, so there's calibrations, right? There's deep erotic intimacy, there's platonic intimacy, and then there's what we might call professional intimacy. We have enough trust with each other that you can talk about difficult subjects in the work context. And then there's the casual, you're at church level of intimacy.
Exactly. And I have to interrupt for a second, and it's fine to keep my dog just came into the room. He
Oh yeah.
opened the door to come in and visit and say, "Hey,
what about me?
I want some attention."
Well, this is a good point there. That's helpful. And so how do people get in touch with you? What are the ways that people might interact with you more?
For now, visit kenblackman.com to get in touch with me and see. My website actually is outdated right now. I want to say something about this title, Commitment Illuminist. So this year in particular, I'm focusing on couples who have been together for a while and haven't gotten to this turning point of like, oh no, you're my person, you're my partner, and maybe they're hesitant about that. And so, Commitment Illuminist, I help them decide. I help them get the clarity they need to decide, are we life partners here, or should we break up amicably and go our separate ways? So that's the kind of work that I'm focusing on this year, and I'm doing that with 10 years of experience of having worked with the committed couples to know what that looks like, right? Reach out to me at kenblackman.com. You can fill out a form and just get in touch. Visit kenblackman.medium.com to read my articles, especially the article that you mentioned, and there's lots more good information there as well.
We'll put all of that in the show notes and on the website and in the video that comes out of this. One of the things that we ask in every conversation we have with people is, as a final question, it actually means a lot to us, and we take it really seriously. Although when you hear it, it might seem like it's not really that deep, but it is to us. So here it is. Eminem or Foo Fighters?
Oh, I'm going to give myself away here.
Yeah, that's the whole point.
I'm not familiar enough with Foo Fighters to know whether I like them or not. So I have to go with M&M's.
Right. That's a solid answer.
I'm changing my answer. I don't like M&M's, so I'm going with the unknown because I want to know more about them.
So you don't like Marshall Mathers, the rapper?
Oh, I love him. What?
Eminem is the
Eminem, the rapper. Oh no, right. I love Eminem. I thought Eminem's plural.
Yeah, not the candy. These are musical acts. We got the Foo Fighters.
I thought you were comparing two completely different things. No, Eminem. I love Eminem. He's one of my faves.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay.
Well, it's been really a treat to have all of these insights, and it's really clear that we could go on for a lot longer. Thank you so much for your generosity of your time with us today. And as I said before, we'll put all of that in the show notes for those who want to understand more. I know that you have books you're working on, and there's other things that you're working on too that are really, really amazing. Thank you again so much for joining us.
Much love to you both.
Recording stopped.